Welcome to Tales from Panperipta, where clouds wear capes and dreams drift on starlit winds. Each episode brings you gentle, whimsical bedtime stories set in the vast and magical realm of Panperipta, a world full of sleepy trolls, moon-sweeping tinkers, and curious frog inventors. Whether you're here to unwind or doze off, you're always welcome in Panperipta. Take a deep breath and drift.
Story 1: The Whispering Hourglass, featuring Princess Rena of Cloud Petal Spire. Introduction. In the mist-crowned realm of Panperipta, where dawn drips like honey from floating mountains and silver swans fairy wishes between clouds, there lived a clever recluse named Princess Rena of Cloud Petal Spire. She was known across the realm not for her jewels or gowns, but for her puzzles, each one more curious than the last, and some said she could even puzzle the moon into hiding. One quiet morning, while tuning her talking umbrella to the rhythm of rainfall, she discovered an hourglass in her observatory that did not belong to her. Its sand shimmered blue as moonlight and whispered faintly, as if counting not seconds, but secrets. Chapter 1: The Clockmaker's Puzzle. The hourglass bore no maker's mark, only a thin inscription that read, "Turn me when you wish to know what you forgot." Intrigued, Rena wound her braid around one finger, her thinking habit, and asked her umbrella, "Do I dare?" The umbrella flapped twice, a sure sign of uncertainty. Yet curiosity, being Rena's truest compass, won easily. She flipped the hourglass. At once, the entire spire froze in place. The rain halted mid-air, droplets suspended like pearls. The clocks stood still, but Rena's heart and her thoughts kept moving. Then she heard a voice, soft as silk. "You left me behind." The sound came from nowhere and everywhere at once. It felt old, familiar, like a memory that refused to stay buried. Chapter 2: A Visit from the Forgotten. Rena traced the voice to her old greenhouse, where sleeping vines curled around moonflowers and dream seeds. There, perched upon a sundial, sat a small wooden bird missing one eye. She gasped. "Thistlefin," she whispered. It was her childhood companion, a clockwork sparrow she'd built before she ever became a princess. She'd lost him during her coronation and, with time, forgotten his existence. The bird blinked its one good eye and chirped, "The sands remember Rena." She realized the hourglass was no mere trinket. It was an artifact from the clockmaker of Kernvale, said to recover lost fragments of memory. But the more one remembered, the more time itself unraveled. The whispering grains began spinning faster inside the glass, pulling at the edges of the present like threads. Chapter 3: The Hourglass Reversed. Soon the castle's walls began fading into versions of themselves from long ago. Hallways shrank, furniture vanished, her crown disappeared from her head. She was being pulled backward through her own life. Thistlefin fluttered to her shoulder and warned, "To remember everything is to lose everything." Rena clutched the hourglass. "Then I must choose what stays." In one decisive motion, she turned it upside down again. But this time, she whispered into the sand, "Keep what made me kind, forget what made me lonely." The hourglass stilled, the whispers quieted, and the frozen rain resumed its fall, as if nothing had ever paused at all. Epilogue. When Rena returned to her tower, the hourglass was gone. Only a single blue grain of sand remained on her desk. She placed it in a locket and kept it near her heart. As the years passed, she noticed she could not recall certain faces or sorrows. But she remembered every kindness, every laugh, every moment of wonder. And when she gazed at the clouds drifting below her spire, she would sometimes hear a tiny clockwork chirp, echoing like a forgotten song finally found. Story 2, Grundle and the River of Paper. Featuring Grundle the Gentle. Introduction. In the fern-draped realm of Panperipta, where ink rains from thunderclouds and libraries bloom beside waterfalls, there lived a troll named Grundle the Gentle. He was a librarian beneath the willow bridge, a keeper of every story whispered by travelers crossing his mossy span. One evening, as he catalogued dream journals by firefly light, he noticed the bridge trembling faintly. Below, the stream had turned to a river of drifting pages, sheets upon sheets of parchment flowing endlessly eastward, carrying words that glowed faintly blue. Grundle, ever a friend to stories, decided to follow. Chapter 1. The River's Origin. He packed a satchel of tea biscuits, strapped on his spectacles, and began walking along the bank. Each page that floated past bore a fragment of text. Once there was a queen who forgot the names of her stars, left her story unfinished. The troll hummed softly, recognizing the sorrow of unwritten endings. He followed the current to the edge of the murmuring glades, where the river plunged into a hollow tree that pulsed with faint light. The entrance whispered like turning pages. A voice greeted him. "Return them, or they will forget themselves." Chapter 2. The Scribe Beneath the Roots. Inside the hollow tree sat a spectral woman of parchment skin and ink-black eyes, the scribe beneath the roots. She dipped her quill into her own hair, which flowed like liquid ink. "These are abandoned stories," she said, "forgotten by those who never finish them. They drift until they dissolve." Grundle bowed respectfully. "That's a tragedy. Every story deserves an ending." She smiled wearily. "Then end them, gentle troll. But beware, each tale you complete will take a piece of your memory in return." Grundle thought carefully. He could not stand to let stories vanish unloved. So he sat down among the drifting pages and began to read aloud. Chapter 3. The Price of Finishing. For days he read the stories of lost kings, silent magicians, rain that dreamed of being snow. As he spoke their final words, the pages folded themselves into glowing origami birds and fluttered skyward, singing gratitude. But as each tale found closure, Grundle felt a piece of his past blur. The names of old friends faded first, then the recipe for his favorite moss tea. Then his own handwriting began to look strange. When he realized he could no longer remember why he'd come, the scribe touched his forehead. "You have given memory for meaning. That is no small kindness." She gathered the last of the pages into a single bound volume and handed it to him. "This will remember for you." Epilogue. Grundle returned to his bridge with the mysterious tome under his arm. When he opened it, he found every story he'd ever saved written in his own voice, even the ones he could no longer recall. He placed the book upon the highest shelf of his library and brewed a cup of tea, smiling faintly, though the scent felt unfamiliar. And as the moon rose over the willow bridge, the whisper of 1,000 completed tales rippled through the leaves, a lullaby of endings that would never again be lost. Story 3, The Lantern That Lied, featuring Tilly Thimblewish. Introduction. In the dew-silvered realm of Panperipta, where cattails whisper secrets to sleeping fireflies and the night sky hums with hidden songs, there fluttered a fairy named Tilly Thimblewish. Known for her shimmering wings and mischievous grin, she carried a small golden lantern said to glow whenever someone told a lie. For years, the lantern had served her well, revealing tricksters, pranksters, and woodland fibbers of every sort. But one cool twilight, as she danced above the Mothmire Marsh, she noticed something strange. The lantern glowed when she spoke. Chapter 1, The Lantern's Flicker. "I most certainly didn't eat the last honey puff," Tilly said aloud, though her fingers were sticky. The lantern flared bright orange. She blinked. "That's impossible." "I never lie." It burned brighter. Panicked, she flew to the nearest pond to check her reflection. The lantern swung from her hand like an accusing eye. "I tell fiblets sometimes," she admitted to the reflection, "but only the sweet kind. The ones that make people happy." The glow dimmed slightly, but did not fade. That unsettled her deeply. Tilly prided herself on being honest, at least mostly honest. Something inside the lantern had changed, or perhaps something inside her had. Chapter 2, The Firefly Judge. Determined to uncover the truth, Tilly flew to the court of the fireflies, a clearing where the elder lights of the swamp gathered to settle disputes. The eldest, a vast silver-winged firefly named Luminastra, listened to Tilly's tale. When she finished, Luminastra replied, "Your lantern no longer judges truth as words. It judges truth as intent." "But my intentions are good," cried Tilly. "Are they?" asked the elder. "A lie to spare pain is still a shadow between hearts." To test her, Luminastra handed her a challenge. "Fly to the hermit of the hollow reed. He has waited 20 years for a promise never meant to be kept. Tell him the truth, and your lantern will dim no more." Tilly sighed. "Sounds dreadfully unfun." "Truth rarely sparkles," said Luminastra, "but it shines longer." Chapter 3, The Promise in the Hollow Reed. Tilly fluttered through the fog until she found the hermit's reed hut by the river's edge. Inside sat an old frog with a locket in his hand. "You came," croaked the hermit. "The fairy who promised to bring back my lost melody. Tilly froze. She remembered him. Long ago she'd promised to return with the tune of the moon to cheer him, but she'd forgotten. Her lantern began to blaze white hot. Tears stung her eyes. I lied, hermit. There is no moon melody. I only wanted you to have hope. He smiled faintly. Then you gave me more than truth ever could. Hope kept me singing. The lantern flickered once, then settled into a calm, steady glow. Not the accusing orange, but a gentle gold. Epilogue. When Tilly returned to the Mothmire Marsh, the lantern felt lighter in her hands. It no longer punished her for the shades of truth, but instead shimmered with her sincerity. From that night forward, the little fairy became known not as a truth-teller or liar, but as the keeper of honest hearts, one who could tell when love outweighed deception. And sometimes, just sometimes, when the moon was bright, the lantern would hum a quiet melody of its own, a tune that sounded suspiciously like forgiveness. Story 4. Sir Brambletack and the Sleeping Giant. Featuring Sir Brambletack of Thimblehold. Introduction. In the bramble-wrapped realm of Panperipta, where mushrooms wore helmets and beetles beat war drums on acorn shells, there marched a tiny knight named Sir Brambletack of Thimblehold. Barely taller than a thimble, but thrice as brave, he defended hedgehogs, daisies, and lost pebbles alike. One misty morning, while polishing his acorn shield, he noticed the ground beneath his fort trembling, not with battle, but with breath. The earth itself seemed to snore. He followed the sound until he discovered that the entire valley rested upon the belly of a sleeping giant. Chapter 1. The Knight and the Dreamer. The giant lay half buried in moss, enormous and peaceful, with flowers growing from his beard and butterflies resting on his eyelids. His snores shaped the weather. Each exhale became wind, each sigh a drizzle. Brambletack approached cautiously, sword drawn. "By the order of the Hedge Council, you are trespassing upon cultivated soil," he declared. The giant rolled slightly, and Brambletack was flung into a patch of moss the size of a meadow. Unharmed but indignant, he climbed the giant's boot and shouted, "Wake up, you mountain of naps! The valley belongs to the hedgerows." The giant mumbled in his sleep, "The hedgerows belong to dreams." Brambletack blinked. "Dreams? You can talk in your sleep? That's cheating." Chapter 2. The Dream Field. As the knight explored the giant's chest, he found entire villages of sleeping crickets and dandelions nestled in its creases, all gently dreaming. The air shimmered faintly, and before he realized it, Brambletack drifted into the same dream. He found himself standing in a glowing meadow where the giant was awake, kind-eyed, and sitting beside a lake made of stars. "I did not mean to crush your lands," said the giant, smiling sadly. "I only slept where the earth was soft. I dream to hold the world gently so it does not hurt." Brambletack sheathed his sword. "Then why not wake and move?" "Because," said the giant, "when I wake, storms follow." The knight frowned, torn between duty and compassion. "Then perhaps I must find a way to let you dream safely and keep our hedges whole." Chapter 3. The Song of Gentle Earth. In the dream meadow, Brambletack composed a poem, a lullaby written in rhyme and rhythm of rainfall, and sang it to the sleeping earth. "Rest, great dreamer, but shift your weight, so roots may thrive and blooms await. Sleep in peace, but soft and slight. Let daylight live beneath your night." The melody traveled through the dream and into the waking world. The giant stirred, his body rising just enough to lift the valley into a new shape. Hills formed where his shoulders rested, rivers where his breath flowed. None of the hedgerows were crushed. Instead, they grew stronger in the rich soil he left behind. When Brambletack awoke, the valley was bright and humming with life, and the giant's outline had become a gentle mountain range, still smiling in sleep. Epilogue. The hedge council named Brambletack guardian of the dreaming hills, and his poem was sung by bees and grasshoppers for generations. Whenever thunder rumbled softly through Thimblehold, the villagers knew it was the giant turning in his sleep, and the brave little knight whispering back, "Rest easy, old friend." And though Brambletack's sword hung rusted upon his wall, his quill never did. For the tiniest knight in Panperipta had learned that words could move mountains, even ones that dreamed. Story 5. Pibbin Fruitsnap and the Cloud Engine. Featuring Pibbin Fruitsnap, the frog inventor of the Mire Marsh. Introduction. In the mist-swaddled realm of Panperipta, where cattails hum with thunder's echo and the air smells faintly of rusted rain, there squatted a frog named Pibbin Fruitsnap. His workshop floated on a cluster of lily pads, stitched together with vines and sheer stubbornness. Pibbin was no ordinary tinkerer. He was an inventor of nearly brilliant ideas. Umbrellas that drizzled upward, kettles that boiled only when you forgot them, and once a machine that turned hiccups into applause. But one gloomy dawn, while sketching blueprints in the condensation on his window, he had a thought so spectacular, he croaked aloud, "I'll build a cloud engine, a machine that makes rain wherever and whenever I please." If successful, he would become the first frog in Panperipta to manufacture weather. Chapter 1. The Engine Takes Shape. For 3 days and nights, the swamp echoed with clangs, splashes, and occasional cries of, "Oh no, that's not supposed to explode." Pibbin scavenged gears from old wind chimes, pipes from broken reeds, and a balloon made of stitched snail shells. When he finally assembled it, the machine resembled a teapot crossed with a thunderhead. He cranked its handle, muttering proudly, "Prepare for controlled precipitation, courtesy of Pibbin Fruitsnap." The balloon inflated, sputtered, and then, with a sound like a belching trumpet, launched a puff of vapor straight into the clouds. At first, nothing happened. Then a drizzle began, then a downpour, then a monsoon. Lightning zigzagged across the marsh, frogs scattered, and cattails yelped as water levels surged. The swamp became a storm. Pibbin clung to his workshop roof, shouting over the chaos. Marvelous, terrible, but marvelous. Chapter 2. The Weather Warden. When the storm refused to stop, Pibbin decided he might need help. So he packed a jar of lightning bugs and paddled toward the Nimbus Conservatory, where Panperipta's weather wardens resided. He was met at the gate by Mistress Syrah, a cloud spirit who shimmered like moonlit vapor. "You dare tamper with the sky?" she asked, voice booming like distant thunder. Pibbin bowed, dripping wet. "Tinker, not tamper. I only wish to provide portable precipitation. Imagine rain on demand for thirsty gardens, puddles for playing, fog for dramatic entrances." Syrah sighed, rolling her eyes like tiny storms. "Your engine tore a hole in the local humidity balance. If not stopped, the swamp will drown in its own sky." Pibbin gulped. "Ah, a technical oversight." She handed him a small crystal sphere glowing faintly blue. "This is a dew heart. Insert it into your device's core, and it will balance its cycle. But hurry, the longer it runs, the heavier the sky becomes." Pibbin saluted, his goggles slipping over his eyes. "One emergency patch coming right up." Chapter 3. The Race Against the Rain. Back in the Mire Marsh, Pibbin waded through rising water toward his runaway invention. The cloud engine was now hovering several feet above his workshop, puffing out thunderclouds like a proud, deranged kettle. Lightning arced as he climbed the vine ladder, clutching the dew heart. Each rung was slick, each thunderclap louder. He reached the control panel just as the machine began to glow a furious purple. "Hold steady, old friend," he muttered, patting the metal casing. "You meant well. I know you did." He jammed the dew heart into the central chamber. The engine convulsed once, then inhaled a long, deep breath that sucked every raindrop, every wisp of mist, every ounce of thunder back into itself. For a moment, the world went silent. Then, gently, the sky cleared. A single droplet landed on Pibbin's snout and gleamed like a star. He exhaled. Perfect atmospheric equilibrium. I should probably write that down before I forget what it means. Epilogue. The weather wardens later visited the Mire Marsh to inspect the damage, but instead found a new ecosystem, lush, balanced, and shimmering with dew-cooled light. Pibbin, proudly sipping swamp tea beside his now-tamed cloud engine, grinned. Self-contained atmospheric management. I call it the rain brain. The wardens exchanged nervous looks. From that day on, mild drizzles wandered lazily across Panperipta whenever Pibbin hummed. Some said the clouds liked him too much to leave. Others claimed the frog had simply learned to talk to the weather. Either way, when storms passed overhead, villagers often heard his voice through the thunder, cheerfully exclaiming, "Controlled chaos achieved."
Panperipta grows quiet for now, but its skies still shimmer and its stories never sleep. Stay as long as you like. Another tale is always waiting. Take a deep breath and drift.